Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Amanda Kramer, and I am the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement at the University of Colorado Boulder's Leeds School of Business. Leeds is a top business school offering undergraduate, MBA, executive MBA, MS, and PhD programs, and has an alumni network of over 47,000 strong living and working around the world. For today's Leeds webinar, we're so excited to welcome Deborah Jason, who is here presenting Creating a Rockstar LinkedIn Profile. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, if you have any questions now or during the presentation that you would like to ask Deborah, please send a question through the Q&A interface at the bottom of your screen. We will monitor questions as they are submitted, and we will ask Deborah your questions throughout the presentation. As a reminder for optimum audio quality, we do have everyone on mute except for myself and our speaker. If you experience any technical difficulties during the webinar, please notify us through the chat interface, and one of our support specialists will touch base. Lastly, a link to access the webinar recording will be sent to all registrants on Thursday, along with a survey link. Now, I am excited to introduce today's speaker. Deborah Jason started her copywriting business from scratch with one client to her name and no degree in marketing. After a consistent and persistent effort to market herself and keep marketing herself, she is proud to be with us today, still in business, more than 3 decades after she opened her doors. An alumna of the University of Colorado's Graduate School and a former faculty member of the Leeds School of Business, Deborah is a national speaker, marketing mentor, and author of the award-winning book, Millionaire Marketing on a Shoestring Budget. From business owners and engineers to real estate agents and speakers, Deborah has guided hundreds of professionals in creating robust, optimized LinkedIn profiles that help them open the doors to receiving more opportunities. Welcome, Deborah, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to hand the webinar over to you now.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Matthew, and thank you everyone for being here. We're going to jump right in. Today, more so than ever, especially in the last 4 years, people are doing their research. They're doing their due diligence on you before they ever meet you, whether they're meeting you personally or virtually. So that puts you in a position to win or lose based on what they find on your LinkedIn profile and your activity there. LinkedIn presents you with numerous opportunities. Some of them include being able to demonstrate that you are an industry expert, or to build your reputation as a trusted voice in your industry, to build that thought leadership. And one of my favorites is to enable deeper engagement within your professional community. Because being social is all about getting engaged. It's about building and nurturing relationships. This is Bob Burg. If you have ever read his series with John David Mann, it's called the Go-Giver series. They talk about what I call the KLT factor. I'm guessing many of you know what that means. It stands for the know, like, and trust factor. With all things being equal, people will do business with the people they know, like, and trust. Now, I take it a step further. I say if they know you, like you, and trust you, then they will refer you and pay you. So keep that in mind. When you're looking at LinkedIn, it's about building and nurturing relationships. Now, I said LinkedIn offers many opportunities. One of those opportunities is if you have what we call a complete and robust profile, you open the doors to 40 times more opportunities through the network. This statistic comes from LinkedIn. But the key word here, or key words, are complete, robust, and optimized profile. I'm surprised how often someone says, I have a LinkedIn profile and it's complete. And really all they have done is put their name in and their job title. So here's a question for you. Amanda is going to launch a poll, and I want you to rate your LinkedIn profile. That's assuming most of you have them. If you don't have one, then you don't need to participate in the poll. But on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your LinkedIn profile? 1 being boring, 2 mediocre, 3 it's pretty good, or 4 it's good, and 5 is I'm a rock star. So take a moment now and respond to that poll. And then Amanda's going to pop that back up there and show us the results. So we have so far 42% say pretty good. And we have a few at boring, a few at mediocre, and some at good, which kind of explains why some of you are here, or many of you are here today, is to talk about your LinkedIn profile and how to create a rock star profile. We're going to do this in the form of a game show where I'm going to explain some of the mistakes that people make on LinkedIn. The good news is, for those of you who have a profile, if you find that you've made these mistakes, you can easily fix them. And if you have yet to start a profile, then you can avoid these mistakes. So I want you all to get to your keyboards, get your hands on the keys, because you're going to participate. We are going to play a game called Fact or Fiction. I'm going to show you a slide, and I want you to type in the chat box, is this fact or is this fiction? So real quickly, just to make sure everybody's ready, get your hands on the keyboard, and if you're ready, just type quickly in the chat, yes. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So let's get going. Fact or fiction number 1. LinkedIn profiles with photos get 78 times more views. Fact or fiction? Okay, I'm seeing that the answers come in, and most all of you are saying fact. Well, I'm sorry. This is a trick question, and the answer is fiction. But let me explain why. The mistake people make, even today, many years after LinkedIn has already been online, people do not include a profile photo. So you might go to someone's profile and see that little circle with no photo in there. The correct statistic is if you have a profile photo, you get 14 to 21 times more views, not 78. So sorry for tricking you there, but it is important that you have that profile photo. You'll get 14 to 21 times more views according to LinkedIn. Fact or fiction number 2. It only takes 100 milliseconds for someone to form an impression of you just by looking at a photo of your face. Fact or fiction? Okay, so this one's not a trick question, and it seems like most of you have gotten it right. 80 to 90% of that first impression is based on 2 things. Are you trustworthy and are you competent? So just by looking at a photo of your face, most people are saying, I don't know if it's subconsciously or consciously, but they're thinking, is this person trustworthy and competent? Which brings us to fact or fiction number 3. This is a real photo posted on someone's LinkedIn profile. Fact or fiction? It's always interesting to me that most of the people who attend this program get this right. This is a real photo on someone's LinkedIn profile. But what I want you to type in the chat box next is, what do you think this person does for a living? Are they an actor, an accountant, a comedian, or a hacker? We've got hacker, accountant, comedian, hacker, accountant. Okay, so here's one question. If the person was a hacker, do you think they'd actually have a LinkedIn profile? And for those of you who guessed accountant, that is correct. This person is a certified public accountant. Now, that's what my dad did for many years till the day he passed. Excuse me. And he would be a little upset if he saw his profession portrayed this way. But that brings us to these photos. Excuse me. Look at these photos. They're not here for you to make fun of people. It's here as a learning tool. So we're not going to go through each of these, but I want you to look at, for example, the one up in the left-hand corner with the little boy with the blue background. What do you think that person does for a living? Type that in the chat. teacher, daycare, preschool teacher, daycare employee, homemaker, sells slides, actor. Okay, I think I'm getting some answers to some of the other questions. Stay-at-home mom or dad. So that person, that little boy up in the left-hand corner, that person is actually an eye doctor. And he's not even a pediatric eye doctor. So why is there a photo of a little boy on his profile? Now, let's look at the baby down below. That photo, what do you think that person does? No clue, nothing. Daycare, babysitter, nurse, pediatrician, stay-at-home mom, baby care. So some of you are close. The baby photo is somebody that does daycare. But let me ask you this. If you were doing your due diligence and researching a daycare provider, don't you want to see a photo of that person, not of their baby or somebody's baby? I'm assuming yes, I see. You would want to know who they are. What do they look like? So again, these photos aren't to make fun of people. They're just to show you that you want to make sure you have an image that does justice to you, something that portrays you in a good light so that people look at you and say, yes, that person is trustworthy and competent. So let's go on to keywords. Now, Amanda submitted a bunch of questions to me before we ever started this program. And I know there was one person who did ask about keywords. So, fact or fiction, number 4. The use of keyword phrases is only important on your website, not on your LinkedIn profile. Fact or fiction? Awesome. You guys are doing great. So, yes, we have fiction, fiction, fiction. Almost all of you look like you got that correct. So, LinkedIn, the mistake that people make is they don't optimize their profiles for keyword phrases because you see, LinkedIn is kind of a search engine. So, if someone doesn't know you, they don't know your name, they don't know your company name, what keyword phrase are they going to search to find someone like you with your talents, your skills, your abilities? This particular slide I'm showing you, I whited out the person's name for privacy, but they were the owner of the ABC Day Spa. Owner and founder are not great keywords. And I actually, when I started my profile, I used the owner of the right direction. And as you might imagine, I have since changed that because your professional headline, which is right under your name, is a good place for keyword phrases. Now, someone may search owner or founder if they're looking to invest in your company. Maybe they're a venture capitalist, or if you're looking to sell your company and someone wants to buy a business, maybe they're looking for owner or founder. But I want you to think of keywords that people would use to find someone like you. And I want you to be specific. So this slide comes from a presentation I did for the PMI Mile High chapter, where most of the people there are project managers. But my question to them was, what type of project manager are you? And you can see by this chart, there are manufacturing project managers, IT project managers, healthcare project managers, and the list goes on. So when you're thinking of your keyword phrases, think about being specific. So just a little hint, so far I mentioned 2 places for your keyword phrases. Your professional headline, okay, and then in your job title, and actually I haven't mentioned that yet, but we'll get to it. So if I haven't covered, there's 5 places. By the end of this program, I should have covered all 5, but if I haven't, just remind me. So let's go back to fact or fiction. If you have a job description written under your current work experience, you don't need what's known as the about section. Fact or fiction? Fiction, fiction. I'm seeing a lot of people with fiction. And thank you, by the way, all for playing along. I love to see people participating. So yes, it is fiction. So when you're on your LinkedIn profile, there is a section called About, and then there are descriptions for your specific jobs. That's what you're seeing here, someone's job description. The About section is one of the most important sections of your profile, and the mistake people make is they don't complete it. Now, I want to take a little bit of a step aside with this particular slide because it demonstrates several things. So Angela was a client of mine, and when we worked together, she did not have an About section. However, on this slide, there are several key points for you to pay attention to. At the time that we worked with her, you could see it was LinkedIn's old format. So LinkedIn back then had that blue background. It was the constellation image. That is valuable real estate. There is still a background there. It's not the constellation anymore. I want you to put an image back there, but I don't want you to just put an image. I want you to put an image that has a text overlay with your email or your website or your phone number. It's not clickable. It's not linkable, but it's visible when someone goes to your profile. So keep that in mind. The next thing I want to demonstrate on this slide is Angela's name field. You can see at that time it said Angela Gaffney, keynote speaker, corporate wellness. Those are some good keywords. However, LinkedIn terms say you cannot put or you should not put anything in your name field but your name. The exception would be your degree. So if you're a PhD or an MA, or if you have some kind of certification. So if you're a real estate agent and you're an ABR, an accredited buyer's rep, or in the speaking world, there's something called a CSP, a certified speaking professional. So your name field can have your name, and it can have a degree, an educational degree, or a certification of some kind. Underneath your name, and again, this was one of the questions somebody asked prior to the program, was about your headline. Underneath your name is what's known as the professional headline. At this time, Angela had the Daily Essentials Cookbook Collection Breakfast. Not very keyword enhanced unless she wanted to be found for breakfast cookbooks. So that's another place for your keyword phrases, your professional headline, not in your name field, but in your professional headline. So then after working with Angela, I do one-on-one consultations with people. You can see she took that background banner, put an image in there, and then put her website, her email, her phone number. Again, it's not clickable or linkable, but you can see it's very visible if someone goes to her profile. Then under her name, now you see her name is just her name. And in her professional headline, she now has not just keynote speaker, but wellness keynote speaker, because wellness is a keyword for her. She has other keywords, nutrition, stress management, and work-life balance. So that's her professional headline. And now, after we worked together, she moved her About section to this. So what I want you to know about your About section, it's a little bit about you and then how you help people. Okay, a little bit about you and how you help people. This is a place for keyword phrases. Keyword phrases in your About section should be consistent with the keyword phrases in your professional headline. You have 2,600 characters here, not words. So please don't write one really long paragraph. I want short paragraphs. Okay, that makes it inviting to a reader's eye, so they want to read more. You can use bullet points, but not just bullet points. You want it to be conversational. You want it to be in the first person. So let me demonstrate a little bit what Angela did, a little bit about her. She wrote, as a wellness expert and catalyst for healthy transformation. Then she shared how she helps others. She helps people achieve health while excelling in their careers. The next paragraph had a little bit about her. She survived a health crisis that nearly took her life. And then a little bit about how she helps people. She empowers others with wellness strategies. Now you can see she uses the words wellness. She uses balance, work-life balance, stress management. When I talk about keyword phrases, it's not about stuffing It's about using keywords where they are appropriate. Okay. So again, think about what would somebody be searching for keyword wise if they didn't know your name or your company. And then you want to use those keyword phrases so far in your professional headline and in your about section. Next, fact or fiction. Okay. So just customizing your LinkedIn URL helps your profile show up higher in a browser's search results. I'm getting some fictions, I'm getting some facts, I'm getting true. Okay, well, let's look. It is fact. So when you sign up for LinkedIn, you get a URL that looks like what you see up on the left. It's linkedin.com/pub/your name and all these numbers. You want to go in there and personalize your LinkedIn URL so that it's linkedin.com/in/your name. Now, when you hit that save button, if your name's not available, LinkedIn will tell you. So if that happens, you want to stick with something close to your name. You don't want it to be something cutesy because this is your personal profile. Okay, so if John Doe is not available, you try John A. Doe with your middle initial, or maybe J.A. Doe with your first and middle initial. Try to stick with something that is close to your name if your full name is not available. And again, when you're in LinkedIn and you hit that save button, LinkedIn will let you know if it's available or not. That will make it much easier for you to remember and to share if you're ever using it in any, let's say, marketing materials or telling somebody where to go to find you on LinkedIn. And as we stated, it will help your profile show up higher in a browser's search results. Okay. So somebody, Jennifer's asking, PhD or MBA at the end are good too, correct? Yes. So Jennifer, when you have your name field, you can put in Jennifer Weinberger, PhD, or you can put in Jennifer Weinberger, MBA. LinkedIn says your name field can have your name. It could have any college degrees, educational degrees, or certifications, the letters for them. Okay, so yes, you can do that. That's okay. So a quick rundown so far. We're not done with fact or fiction, but just a rundown of the first 4 mistakes. So number 1, not having a photo on your LinkedIn profile. And by the way, doesn't mean it has to be taken by a professional photographer. These days, most people have these gadgets called smartphones, okay? But please don't do what I see. Yes, I'm going to admit I'm on some dating apps. Don't do standing in front of a mirror and taking your picture. Don't take your phone and have it look up your nose and take a picture. Stand in front of a nice background, wear something nice, and ask someone to take your photo, and then you can crop it so it looks professional. Okay. Mistake number 2 is not optimizing your profile for keyword phrases. Again, try to be specific with those keyword phrases. Number 3, not completing your about section. Again, 2,600 characters, not words, short paragraphs in the first person. Share a little bit about you and how you help people. And mistake number 4 so far, not customizing your LinkedIn URL. So you can see these are all mistakes that you can go fix if you've made them or avoid if you haven't done a profile yet. So fact or fiction, all you have to do is create a LinkedIn profile and people will interact with you. Fact or fiction? Okay, I'm glad to see that you all got that correct. It is fiction because the mistake that people make is they get on LinkedIn, they put up a profile, and they don't do anything. I sort of liken it to joining a chamber of commerce. People, or an association of some kind, people pay their dues, and then they sit back and go, what are you going to do for me? What you need to do is get involved, because remember, we said that being on LinkedIn is about engagement. It's about building deeper engagement with your professional community. Okay, this is going to answer some of the questions for some people that were out there. Before the show, they were asking questions about, well, how do I reach the right people, or how do I get the right people to reach out to me? So what you want to do, it's not necessarily you reaching out to them with cold calls, or pitches. Ditch the pitch. What I want you to do is go to your LinkedIn profile, to where it says settings and privacy, and download just your connections. Because I want you real quickly in the chat to say, do you have connections? So people you're already connected to on LinkedIn, but you don't remember who they all are. Yes or no? Yes, yes, yes. So if you do this, download just your connections. Then I want you to go look at that list. LinkedIn will email you and say, okay, your list is ready. I think it comes as a CSV. How do you download again? Go to your privacy and settings, and then you'll see something that says get a copy of your data. And then you'll see what looks like this screen. Just click connections and then request archive. LinkedIn will email you when it's done. Then open that up and look at the connections you already have. Okay, and say, you know what? Amanda's there, but I haven't really been in touch with Amanda lately. And gee, Amanda works for the university, and I might want to work for the university. Here's the thing. I don't want you to reach out to Amanda and say, hey, are there any jobs at the university? What I want you to do is go look at Amanda's profile, see what she has been posting. Okay, and then engage with those things she has been posting. And so what I mean is, let's say she posted something that had 5 tips for getting a job with the university. Okay, I'm just making this up. Go in there and comment on what she shared. And I don't mean just say, that's great idea. I want you to comment in a way that can create some engagement, that can create a conversation. So maybe ask a question like, gee, are those 5 tips that you gave, do they relate to the education industry or to the commercial real estate industry? Something that you hope will engage that person. And that's a way of reaching out to them. So then you can start to have a conversation and build and nurture that relationship. So go through those connections, because maybe there's someone, and it might be as simple as somebody that you have really known for a long time, but you haven't been in touch with. And then you just want to go say privately, hey, your name popped up on LinkedIn. How are you doing? Okay, so these are some ways to get involved, to reach out. And the more that you reach out to those people that you want to have engagement with, you'll find that they will respond. And so they'll be reaching out to you. No promises here, but that's how you engage and build and nurture those relationships. Let's go on to fact and fiction. And again, this relates to a question that somebody submitted before the program. It's about skills. Listing skills that you want to be endorsed for on LinkedIn is a waste of time. Fact or fiction? I see fiction. I see one fact, fiction. Okay. Well, I'm glad to see that you all know it is fiction. So to the person who asked a question, they said they were a 25-year professional. How many skills should they include on their profile? LinkedIn used to give you up to 50 skills. Now they give you up to 100. So first, the mistake people make is they don't list any. I don't suggest that you even submit 50 or even 100. That's way too many. LinkedIn says if you have at least 5, okay, that you will get an increase in profile views. The important thing about skills is that it helps build social proof. And Megan, I'll get to your comment in just a second. 75%, for those of you who are looking for jobs, 75% of hires do look at the skill context. Okay, so look at, again, this is a place for keyword phrases. So now I've mentioned 3, your professional headline, your about section, and your skills section. 5 or more skills, okay? When you do that, you're contacted more, you get more views. Now, Megan in the chat said, I don't look at these endorsements as real referrals. They are real referrals. For those of you who have, let's say, some skills listed in your profile, but nobody has endorsed you, because it used to be a big thing that LinkedIn would always go out and sort of push and say, do you endorse Deborah for this? Do you endorse Deborah for that? Now it's more just on your own speed. So if you want to be endorsed, go back to those people you know, like, and trust. Okay, not everyone, the people that you really know well, and say, listen, I'm trying to build up my profile. Would you just take a second and endorse me and ask for the specific skill that you want to be endorsed for? The thing is with LinkedIn, when somebody goes to your profile, they're only going to see one or two of your skills, and then there's a button that says see more. So let them know which ones you want to be endorsed for. And by the way, you can move those skills around on your profile. So whatever you want people to see as soon as they get to your profile, you can move those. Okay. Now, the thing about skills, and I think, let's see if I can get my slide to move here. There we go. LinkedIn also has this feature. When you enter a skill, they will say to you, of the jobs that you have listed in your experience section, which ones does this skill apply to? So on this slide, you'll see where that red arrow is. I did not type that into my experience section. What I did was when I added a skill and LinkedIn said, Deborah, which job does social media marketing apply to? I said it applies to the right direction. And you could see there were several skills that applied to my business, the right direction, which is as a freelance copywriter and a marketing consultant and a speaker. So keep that in mind when you're entering your skills to share which jobs they apply to, because LinkedIn will automatically then add it to those jobs. Now, this sort of goes maybe to what Megan was referring to. Skills are different than recommendations. So what you see here is Angela giving me a recommendation on my LinkedIn profile. For you to give a recommendation, you have to be connected to a person. For you to receive a recommendation, you have to be connected to a person. So this, a recommendation is certainly a much better testament to your skills than just clicking an endorsement button, but both are still very important. So fact or fiction. If you don't know someone and they send you a connection request, you should ignore that invitation. What do you think? Fact or fiction? Let's see, there it is. There's my chat box. So if someone you don't know sends you a connection request, you should ignore that invitation. I'm seeing a mix of facts and fiction, and Nicole says depends. So I'm going to go back to what Nicole just said. It is fiction. So before I move on to the next slide, in the chat, if you receive, I want you to tell me, if you receive an invitation from someone don't know, do you ignore it? Yes or no in the chat. When you get invitations from someone you don't know, ignore unless they know someone they know. Yes, no. Depends. Okay, so for those of you who say depends and somebody says sometimes, here's my suggestion, okay? I say the mistake people make is ignoring those invitations. You don't want to ignore them, okay? Someone said ignore them if they're not connected or I've met them in passing or industry connection. Renata, thank you. She says she looks at their profile. So that's what I want to suggest to you. When you get an invitation or a connection request, it's called, if you don't know that person, don't ignore it and don't accept it, okay? I want you to be sensible because that person could be a good gatekeeper, could be a good vendor or an employee. So as Renata suggested, I want you first, before you ignore or accept, go to that person's profile and check them out, okay? They might be somebody that you want to know, and maybe they do have like 20 connections in common with you. Maybe they went to the same university as you. Maybe they're in an industry that you are considering entering as well. Okay. I want to go down here a little bit. There's a comment from someone. I can't see the whole thing. So let's see. Daniel says, I feel like I'm being pitched rather than connected with. So we're going to get to that, Daniel, because ditch the pitch is one of my hashtags. So here's what I suggest, still on this topic. When you get an invitation to connect and you don't know the person, okay, go to their profile, check them out, then come back to on your LinkedIn navigation bar, there's a button that says network. When you go to that, you'll see all these invitations that you've received, and you can click on one and send that person a message. So don't ignore them, don't accept them, send a message. And this is the template that I use that I'm going to recommend, okay? So, hi, Daniel. Thanks for reaching out on LinkedIn, but I'm curious. Were you referred to me or were you simply searching LinkedIn? It helps me to know how people connect with me. I look forward to hearing from you. And I send it. Then I wait and see if that person responds. If that person responds, sometimes, Daniel, as you suggested, they might send a pitch. Other times they might say, Deborah, I attended your LinkedIn webinar with the Leeds School of Business and I wanted to stay in touch. Or other times they may not respond at all. Well, if that happens, then I ignore it. I find it really kind of baffling when somebody reaches out to connect and you try to engage them and they don't respond. What's the purpose? Okay. Number 10. So this is the last in our fact or fiction game show. It's not the last of our presentation, though. The biggest mistake that professionals make on LinkedIn is treating it like a dating site. Fact or fiction? I'm seeing fact, fiction, fact. So this is another one of those trick questions. It is fiction. It's not the biggest. It is a mistake that some people make. So I tell this quick story. Probably 10 years ago, I got two different requests from people I didn't know. I looked at their profiles. They looked legit. So I messaged them and said, were you referred to me or were you just searching LinkedIn? Surprising or not surprising enough, both of them had very similar responses, which were, Deborah, I'm a widower and I have 3 kids and I'm looking for a wife and a mother for my children. Well, if you're on one of those dating apps, I would have quickly swiped left. Instead, what I did was said, this is not a dating site, and I deleted them. So it is a mistake people make. It doesn't happen as common as some other platforms that you might be on. But before I move on, I want you to type real quickly, so far, since we've been through the last, about 40 minutes, is there at least one tip that you found valuable to you in this presentation? Yes or no, if you got at least one tip that works well for you or that you think you can implement. Awesome, thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're going to keep going. Fact or fiction is over. Be personal, connect to ditch the pitch. Yes, that's one of my favorite. Several tips, great job, thanks, but we're not done yet. So, since you have found some of this helpful, I want to offer something else that's helpful. Amanda, if you would put that link in the chat, I have a 10-point LinkedIn checklist. In order to receive this checklist, I'm going to ask you for some feedback. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. Go to this link, and once you've completed the document that's there, you'll receive a link to a 10-point LinkedIn checklist. The checklist is something that you can sit down with your LinkedIn profile in front of you and go through and say, oh yeah, I did that. Oh, Deborah mentioned that, but I forgot to do that. Let me do that. So again, we're going to take a quick minute here for you to go to that link that Matthew has put it in the chat box. Someone asked, how do you customize your banner? That's a long conversation, but the easiest way to do that is if you use a tool called Canva, C-A-N-V-A. You can upload an image, you can use one of their images, and you can put a text overlay on that. So Canva, C-A-N-V-A. There is a free version as well as a paid version, and you can create a banner there.
Great. And
Okay,
one
I'm
more
seeing,
question, Deborah, as we
sure.
wait for everyone to finish the checklist. An anonymous attendee asked, if you have more than 20 years of experience, is it appropriate to include all of your job experiences, no matter how recent?
Well, excuse me. I have several jobs on my LinkedIn profile. It depends in that 20 years how far back you're going in terms of like 10 or 15 jobs. I would say if some of those jobs, if they're all interrelated, then you can use keyword phrases in them. I would say it's not, a bad thing to put 4 of them, 5 of them. Depends. A lot of the answers to questions are depends. But like I said, one of the important things to look at is, do they kind of all interrelate so that you could use keyword phrases in them? Or do they relate to something that maybe you want to do that's different than what you're doing currently or what you've done most recently? So hopefully that answers
Great.
that question.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm seeing, you're welcome. I see thank you in the chat. So I see a lot of done, so I'm going to move forward. We'll put this link back in the chat when we get toward the end of the program again. But before we went to that feedback form, I was talking about the biggest mistake people make. So the question is, what do you think the biggest mistake is that people make on LinkedIn? So I'd like to see in the chat, what do you think the biggest mistake is that people make on LinkedIn? Let's see. Spelling mistakes, not keeping LinkedIn updated. That's a great one. Not filling it out enough. That's another good one. Not updating it. Not engaging enough. That is a big one. Not interacting enough with others, especially depending on what your goals are. Again, you don't want to just put up a LinkedIn profile and sit back. You might have a goal of finding a job. You might have goals of finding clients. It might be enough to just create relationships with vendors or your colleagues. That's where you build your thought leadership. So here's what I say the biggest mistake, and I'm not alone in this. There are quite a few, and a lot of you got them. Oh, spelling and grammar errors and being too verbose. Yes, not engaging, not engaging. These are all great answers. But the biggest mistake starts at the very beginning when you send someone a connection request. Many people make the mistake of not personalizing that request. So when you go to LinkedIn to connect with somebody, this box shows up and says you're more likely to have your invitation accepted if you include a personal note. So that note could be, hey, Deborah, thanks for sharing with us today on that LinkedIn webinar. I'd really like to stay in touch with you. That's it. But here's a little caveat. If you're doing this on your mobile device, it's a little different. You do not hit the connect button in order to personalize your message. You hit those 3 little dots where you see that little arrow. Then you get a pop-up box like you see on the right of this screen. And then you see it says personalized invite. That is where you can set a short note, okay? A really short note that just says, I'm reaching out because I heard you on today's webinar, or I'm reaching out because we met at a Chamber of Commerce meeting and I'd like to stay in touch. This is not what I mean by reaching out. And I believe somebody mentioned it in the chat previously. Okay. When you see this message on the current screen, what does this say to you? Hello, Deborah. I make marketing funnels. You look busy. My new service is a great place for you to start. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, Michael. Spam. I call it the pitch. This is not what I mean by a personalized message. Okay. So take some time and give some thought when you're going to reach out to somebody about your message so that they don't then automatically delete it, ignore it, don't accept it. So we're going to wrap here a little bit. Quickly, I'm going to go through these mistakes. And I have a cat here that I'm watching. So she decided to join the program. Um, Mistake number one, okay, how do you avoid that? Well, you include a photo on your personal profile. Okay, again, it's your personal profile. You want it to look professional. It does not have to be done by a professional photographer. Keyword phrases. Here are the 5 places for your keyword phrases. And you want to be consistent. You don't want to use different keywords and all over the place. Be consistent. The first place is your professional headline, then your about section, then your skills section, then your experience. Now, in your current experience, okay, so that's number 4, and your past experience is number 5. But in your experience sections, your job title and your description field. So some people just put in a job title and they don't fill out the description. Some people put in a job title and they're not specific. So going back to that project manager keyword phrase slide, you're more than just a project manager. You might be an IT project manager, a real estate project manager. I know a woman who wants to be a project manager for speakers. So be strategic with your keyword phrases. Complete the about section, 2,600 characters, a little bit about you and how you help people. Customize that LinkedIn URL. Get involved and engage. A lot of you typed that in the chat, that a mistake people make is not engaging. So get involved and engage. List specific skills you want to be endorsed for. Don't ignore those invitations to connect. Okay, check them out and see if it makes sense. Personalize your own LinkedIn connection requests. Okay, so here's how some people use LinkedIn. This is an author, Elizabeth Heron. She actually works with project managers. She uses it to build a strong online presence. How does she do it? She shares content from books, blogs, podcasts with the people in her network and her followers. Now, for those of you that go, I don't know what to share, Elizabeth shares other people's content. Okay, she reposts content that her colleagues have posted. When you do that, what I recommend is you don't just repost it. You repost it with your own comments. So for example, going back to an example I gave earlier, you read something that Amanda wrote, it has 5 tips in it. If you want to repost it, put your own comment on top that says, I love what Amanda shared. Number 3, that was my favorite tip. What tip is your favorite? Or which tip would you recommend using? So that you create some conversation and engagement. And then you can see Elizabeth engages with her connections by responding to comments. So if you post somebody and somebody comments, then please respond back to them. So she asks questions, she gives feedback, and she offers help. Michael is the head of an association, and he said LinkedIn has given him a way to communicate with his members. They respond more to his LinkedIn posts than they do to his emails. He said it helped him increase membership. He can't really measure how much, but he really believes it's helped. And he gets a lot of engagement. So he gets comments from people and he keeps going. Last but not least is Megan, who is the head of engagement. And LinkedIn is a tool for her company to build their brand and get their message out there as a thought leader. She repurposes content as well. Okay, they have a podcast. And this is really important. She said, personally, LinkedIn connects her with colleagues in specific industries as well as prospects. And I say it's important because it's not just about finding clients, okay, or finding jobs. It's about building relationships. There are people within your professional network that are important to stay connected to for a variety of reasons. So I think we're wrapping that up. Now I want to do this poll one more time and see if you would rate your LinkedIn profile same as you did when we first started. So now, based on what you just learned in today's program, how would you rate your profile? Here's the poll up here on the screen. You should be able to see it. Would you say yours is boring, mediocre, pretty good, good, rock star? So fill out that poll that's up on the screen. And then Amanda or Matthew will show us the results. Okay, so some of you who were good before and have lowered your score, some of you that weren't a rock star say now that you are. So that's awesome. Thank you. If we can take down those results, and Daniel, now you have some work to do. Well, that brings us to this question. What is one change you're going to make to maximize your LinkedIn profile? So in the chat, what's one thing? Maybe it's you're going to customize your LinkedIn URL. Pete says he's going to update the about section, keywords, about section, get skills and endorsements, edit your about section. Awesome. So for all of you, ask for endorsements, update. Oh, well, good, Kevin, updated his URL while I was presenting. Repost others and comments are really important, especially if you want to engage with people. Even if, if you're looking for a job, rather than message someone and say, I need a job, go and see what they're posting on their profile and engage with them. That makes you visible to them. And then at some point, if you've started a conversation and they've engaged back with you, then you can reach out to them on a private message. Update your about section and your professional headline, customize your URL. These are all great. So I want you to just take those one thing and do it. If you feel you need help, I do offer one-on-one LinkedIn consultations. They usually last about 2 hours. They are done by Zoom. There is an investment involved. It's usually $400. But if you respond to me within the next week, email me, Deborah@rightdirection.com. It will be $250. We will go over your profile, talk about keyword phrases for you, and I will answer to the best of my ability your questions and discuss engagement strategies. So simply contact me after today's session, Deborah@rightdirection.com, and that's WRITE, rightdirection.com. This is what Keith said after he worked with me. He said he learned more in 2 hours than he was able to accomplish on his own in 6 months. So for those of you who missed the opportunity to get the 10-point LinkedIn checklist, you can go back to this link if Matthew or Amanda puts that link back in the chat box for you. And when you complete the feedback form, you'll receive the link to the 10-point checklist. So we've covered quite a bit. I'm sorry, we only have a few minutes left for questions. Is there something, Amanda, that you have in front of you, or I can review some of the
Yes,
questions?
we have some questions streaming in. Let's take a question that just came in from Jamie. Perhaps a difficult question, but could you share how much time should be spent each week on LinkedIn generally? And then how much time if you are job searching?
Well, those are two kind of different questions. Job searching, gratefully, since I've had my own business for 36 years, I haven't done in a long time. So job searching, one, the important thing is so you don't burn out. I would say give yourself maybe an hour, and that might be just an hour in the morning, and then maybe you go back later in the day, because really you can get burnt out pretty quickly. And then on LinkedIn, similar things, but LinkedIn you could do in 15 or 20 minutes a day. And what I suggest when you do that is go to your LinkedIn profile, but go to the homepage and see what pops up in your feed and engage with those people where it's appropriate. So if there's something that somebody posted, don't just say that's interesting, but try to engage. And I say 15 or 20 minutes. If you're like me, you can end up down the rabbit hole and spend a lot of time there. True with any of our social media marketing networks. So you really have to balance it, and see what works best for you.
Okay, great, thank you. We also received multiple questions around AI. Is there anything I need to do in LinkedIn to account for the fact that some recruiters use AI?
So, yeah, that's the challenging part, not just with recruiters on LinkedIn, but many companies that are asking for your resume, they're putting them through some app that will pull out keyword phrases. So that's one of the biggest things you can do is make sure that you go through your profile and have keyword phrases in your job titles, in your job descriptions, in your skills, in your about section, and then see if you can get not just endorsements, but recommendations. Recommendations, if you just worked on a project or worked for a company and you did a great job, don't be afraid to reach out to that person and say, would you mind writing a recommendation? Or the reverse. If you worked with somebody and they did a great job for you, can you, if you're connected, go to their profile and write a recommendation? Um, the whole AI thing is making things more and more tricky and sometimes challenging and sometimes really beneficial. Depending which AI tools you use, they can really help your productivity. And LinkedIn even incorporates AI in many ways, but most of the time you need to have a paid account to use some of their AI tools. And everything, by the way, that I talked about today can be done with a free account on LinkedIn.
Great, thank you.
And
Taking a look at the time, we'll just do one last question and then we'll wrap up. This question came from Amy and then several other attendees as well. Do the job sections on LinkedIn have to match my resume?
Well, they don't have to, but they probably should. You mean, I don't know if you just mean the sections, the experience section,
Yeah, I think the
but
experience sections and
yeah,
the
okay.
content that goes in there.
Yeah.
Right.
So the experience section, I should have mentioned this earlier. There's a big difference between your about section and your experience section. Your about section is more personal for one, and it's a little about you and how you help people. Your experience section should be about that specific job and what did you achieve at that job? Okay, or what were you acknowledged for at that job? So a little bit different than your resumes. You might have more to share on your LinkedIn profile than you may do on your resume because some people want to keep them short and sweet. You don't want it to be too verbose, just like your about section. I think short paragraphs would really work well. But on your experience sections, whether it's your current or your past, I recommend personally that you really try to focus on what did you achieve in that job? Did you help increase productivity 10%? Were you the top salesman and sales increased by 20%? Really try to focus on what did you achieve or what were you acknowledged for in that job experience.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us for today's presentation. And thank you again, Deborah, for this great information. At this time, we invite you to provide feedback on the webinar by answering the following poll question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this webinar to a friend or fellow Leeds alumni? And go ahead and submit your response there. As a reminder, all webinar attendees will receive an email on Thursday with a link to the recording of this presentation as well as a survey. To view upcoming webinars as well as previous recordings, please visit our website at colorado.edu/business/alumni. We hope you will join us on Thursday, January 23rd for an economic forecast with Rich Wobekind and Brian Lewandowski from Leeds Business Research Division. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your time and go Buffs.